Sandra and I went on a very fun trip to Sandusky, Chicago, and Omaha in celebration of our 25th anniversary, thanks to Sandra's amazing planning. We flew out of Edmonton to Detroit, where we rented a car to drive to Sandusky. There we rode on many wild rides at Cedar Point. We then drove to Chicago, where we spent a few days, followed by a flight to Omaha to end our trip with a visit to their famous zoo and aquarium. We would like to present you a shorter summary of our overall trip, followed by a deeper dive into our visits of the zoos, aquariums, and conservatories for those of you that are interested. After checking into our hotel at Cedar Point, we experienced a renewed freedom. It was our first extended vacation away without our children in over 16 years, and it felt like we were back in our 20s again, even though in my case, it certainly does not look like it. Cedar Point offers over 60 rides, with 18 of them being roller coasters. We bought fast passes so we could ride as many roller coasters that day as possible. The one you see here is called Gatekeeper, and it weaves through the park's entry towers and really freaks you out because it feels like you will be crashing into them. Raven leaves you hanging for a few seconds before it drops you straight down and then through some big loops. Here's a view from the gondola that takes you for a ride over Cedar Point, which, as you can see, is on the shores of Lake Erie. Though Sandra and I rode a few other rides, we spent most of our time on the roller coasters. Later, when we got home from vacation, we watched YouTube point of view videos to relive some of our favorite rides. Iron Dragon, Wild Mouse, Gatekeeper, Raptor, Valraven, Maverick, Steel Vengeance, Millennium Force. We were also able to check out the beach and the marina connected to Cedar Point. If I didn't know any different, I would have thought that we were on an oceanside beach, not on a freshwater lake. We will never forget our day at Cedar Point. If you love rides, especially roller coasters, you really should go sometime. We loved our stay in the Windy City. In the downtown area, we checked out Buckingham Fountain, which has been one of the largest fountains in the world since the 1920s. The Chicago Bean, as most of us know it, is actually called Cloud Gate, created by artist Anish Kapoor. It was constructed from 168 steel plates that were welded together and then polished to a mirror finish. It is super fun to play with the reflections as well as to observe how the city reflects all around it in its surfaces. Also in Millennium Park, we relaxed beside the Crown Fountain, which is an interactive public art and video sculpture composed of a black granite reflecting pool between a pair of 50-foot tall glass brick towers. The Field Museum of Natural History is one of the largest of its type in the world. Staff maintains collections of over 20 million specimens and objects that provide the basis for its scientific research programs. The Shed Aquarium was at one time the largest indoor aquarium in the world. It is the first inland aquarium to house a permanent saltwater fish collection. It opened in 1930 and it holds about 32,000 animals. It is the third largest aquarium in the Western Hemisphere after the Georgia Aquarium and the Monterey Bay Aquarium. We really had some fun sampling classic Chicago eats. We had deep dish pizza at Lou Malnati's and at Giordano's. We also ate some of their famous hot dogs at Devil Dogs, as well as at Wrigley Field, where we watched a Cubs versus Blue Jays game. The Cubs beat the Jays in the 10th inning, and even though we were hoping for a Jays win, we had an unexpected surprise when the fans sang their special win song at the end of the game. Following the game, we walked down Clark Street that had been blocked off for a massive after-game party, with live bands playing at many of the pubs on either side of the street. If you want to go on some awesome walks, Chicago has a lot to offer. Some great options include the Lincoln Park Zoo and the Lincoln Park Conservatory, where admission is free. The Miracle Mile, where you can make a shopping pit stop at the 5-story Starbucks Roastery, or Navy Pier with its iconic Ferris wheel and many attractions, or on Oak Street Beach, a sandy playground with a downtown backdrop. One of the coolest things we did in Chicago was to take the architectural riverboat tour. It was so interesting to learn about the various forms of architecture that were constructed over the years since the Great Chicago Fire in 1871, which destroyed over 17,000 structures. It was so interesting to see how the architecture had changed over the years, as well as to learn such fascinating history, including how Chicago became famous for being the Windy City. It was not because of the breezes blowing across Lake Michigan, as I had previously assumed. We had planned to travel back to Navy Pier to watch some fireworks after our river tour, but we decided to go to the observation deck of Trump Tower instead, where we ended up watching those fireworks from Terrace 16. Wow, what a view from way up high and overlooking the river right out to the lake. One morning we took the Green Line train to the Garfield Conservatory. What an amazing place. More to come on that later, but their gardens and collections kept us there much longer than we had anticipated to stay. After we flew to Omaha, we spent the rest of the day hanging out by the Missouri riverfront and downtown. We walked across the Bob Carey pedestrian bridge that spans the river between Nebraska and Iowa, and we also went to visit Omar the troll that lives underneath that bridge on the Nebraska side. As we walked from the river into downtown Omaha, we were pleasantly surprised at how nice it was. It seemed to us that it was really focused on providing a fun place for families to come hang out. There were a number of outdoor facilities geared to playtime. There was an outdoor roller skating rink that doubles as an ice skating rink in the winter. We enjoyed strolling around, observing the locals, and eating some dishes we had never had before, while we were watching some lively girls pedaling by on their party wagon.
The girls on there just gave him this flower.
The next morning we went to visit Omaha's Henry Dorley Zoo and Aquarium. According to Wikipedia, TripAdvisor rated it as the world's best zoo in 2014 based on an algorithmic assimilation of zoo reviews worldwide. We enjoyed the zoo, of course, but I especially looked forward to the aquarium there. There was a lot to see, and we spent the whole day there. That was the last stop on our trip before we flew back home. We had lots of fun, and we treasure the memories of the trip. At each of the 3 locations we visited on our trip, we were treated to the loud singing of cicadas. Turns out it was an extraordinary year for cicadas, one that had not happened in 221 years. The reason is that the annual cicadas emerged together with the cicadas that only emerge once every 13 years, as well as the cicadas that only emerge once every 17 years. If you want to continue watching, the rest of the video will take a deeper dive into the details of our conservatory, zoo, and aquarium visits. The Lincoln Park Zoo and the Lincoln Park Conservatory are right next to each other. For being an admission-free zoo, we were surprised at how big it was and to see how many animals it had on display. Typically, animals at the zoo are given the choice on whether they want to be on display or not. They are provided private areas in their enclosures, and it can be a bit of a hit and miss as to whether you will be able to see some of them. The zoo was founded in 1868, and it is the second oldest zoo in the United States. We thought that since admission was free, that there would be not too much to see. It turns out you could easily spend a half a day there since it sits on 35 acres of land, and it has over 1,100 animals from 200 species on exhibit. Within the African exhibit of the zoo, there is a large aquarium with an 11,000-pound, 7-inch thick glass viewing panel that is full of Lake Malawian cichlids. The Lincoln Park Conservatory is a Victorian-era glass house built in the late 19th century. It contains 4 display halls with exotic plants from around the world. The Palm House has a display of more than 12 different types of palms. Also featured is a very nice lily pond. The Orchid Room contains hundreds of orchids, bromeliads, and a few tropical carnivorous plants. Rare orchids like the moth orchid can be found in the Orchid Room. Orchids get their water from the humidity in the air. We scheduled our rainy day in Chicago for the Shed Aquarium, which is located just south of Navy Pier on the waterfront, right beside the Field Museum of Natural History. Underneath the Dolphin and Beluga Show Amphitheater is a viewing area for dolphins, belugas, sea otters, and penguins. One level above that is where you can take a dolphin or beluga show in, and another level up is the main level. On the main level are a number of exhibits, as you can see here on the layout. Although the Shed Aquarium is not as big as the Georgia Aquarium, we found that the Shed seems to focus more on a variety of smaller freshwater fish species. So for the freshwater aquarium hobbyist, the Shed has a lot to offer. Our first stop after entering was a large stingray touch tank that is open in the warmer months of the year. After that, we spent some time in the Abbott Oceanarium's underwater viewing area. Available for viewing here are beluga whales, sea lions, sea otters, and Pacific white-sided dolphins. At the Shed, they stress that their performing animals are given the option to participate. If they don't want to, they don't need to. They also will select whether the belugas, the sea lions, or the dolphins will be performing at any given show, depending on which group they feel wants to perform the most. So for the show we watched, it was the dolphins that were the most excited to perform that day. Also found in the Abbott Oceanarium is a very nice saltwater Pacific Northwest display, showcasing some colorful urchins and amazing sea stars. Shed is home to two species of penguin, rockhopper and Magellanic. Besides their coloring and size, you might be able to tell them apart by how they move. Magellanics waddle just like you think a penguin would, while rockhoppers are more likely to hop and bounce from place to place instead, just like their name suggests. The fish and amphibians displayed in the Great Lakes exhibit come from the largest freshwater system on the planet that provides drinking water for over 40 million people. This exhibit allows us to meet some of our animal neighbors to encourage us to protect the Great Lakes for both wildlife and people. As a kid, I fished bluegill from a pond on an acreage that I grew up in Ontario. Burbot is known for tasting a bit like lobster, believe it or not. Lake whitefish populations have been dropping in most of the Great Lakes due to zebra and quagga mussel infestations. Channel catfish are omnivores, and they can be caught using a wide variety of bait, including hot dogs and apparently ivory soap. Long-nosed gar and largemouth bass share territories primarily in the lower Great Lakes. Lake sturgeons can grow to a large size for freshwater fish, topping over 7 feet. Some eastern newts have been known to live up to 15 years. The long-nosed sucker stirs up bottom sediment as they eat detritus and algae, helping to maintain better water quality in the ecosystem. Some invasive species of the Great Lakes were also on display, which included sea lampreys, koi, and round gobies. I have seen various touch tanks before, but never one where you can pet a lake sturgeon. The Islands and Lakes exhibit showcases unique ecosystems that can be both isolated and cosmopolitan. This fish is found in the northern half of Lake Tanganyika. The Pacific blue eye is a common fish of rivers and estuaries along the eastern seaboard of Australia. Madagascar rainbow fish are under severe threat because of rapid deforestation. There are at least 700 cichlid species in Lake Malawi, with some estimating that the actual figure might be as high as 1,000 species. Except for 4 species, most of the cichlids in the lake are endemic to the Malawi system, and many have become popular among aquarium hobbyists due to their bright colors. The Malawi eye biter is a predatory fish that will hunt primarily fish in open water, as well as ambush prey from other hiding places. Lake Tanganyika holds at least 250 species of cichlid fish, and almost all of these are endemic to the lake. It is also home to more than 80 species of non-cichlid fish, and about 60% of these are endemic. The introduction of the Nile perch to Lake Victoria has been one of the factors contributing to an extinction that has occurred among the lake's cichlids in the last 50 years. Before then, about 90% of the native fish species there were haplochromines. Caiman are a common sight in the swamps of Central America, as are various species of Procholotus. Platies are also found sharing the same waters with silver dollars and vampire plecos. Freshwater stingrays are almost circular in shape. Several species from Central and South America are commonly bred in captivity, especially at East and Southeast Asian fish farms. The pearl gourami is a relatively peaceful species native to Southeast Asia. You may find moonlight gouramis as well as white cloud mountain minnows swimming together in Asian lakes. Go jump in the lake in Nicaragua and get ready to meet a black belt or a Midas cichlid. The painted turtle is the most widespread native turtle to North America. Giant danios dance with spanner barbs in the Southeast Asian streams, as do giant gouramis with large tinfoil barbs, who will exchange the odd glance with a clown loach or even a large clown knife fish. Giant danios are also used as dither fish in South and Central American cichlid aquariums, which allows the cichlids to exhibit more natural behavior. The black piranha is the largest species of piranha. Australian rainbow fish live in a wide range of habitats, including rivers, lakes, and swamps. Although they spawn all year round, they lay a particularly large number of eggs at the start of the local rainy season. The Australian lungfish can live out of water for several days if the surface of its skin remains constantly moist. Paddlefish cruise the murky waters of America's big rivers, and they can grow to be 5 feet long. Almost 1/4 of that length is its snout. The Nile or Fahaka pufferfish can be found in the Upper Nile, which is the longest river in Africa, flowing through 11 countries. The bloodthroat cichlid typically lives in the Congo River basin and reaches a length of about 5.5 inches. It is a mild-mannered fish that rarely displays aggression towards other species. Distichotis can grow up to 30 inches long and can be found in the same Congo River basin habitat as the Congo tetra. Green chromides and scatties will swim together in brackish waters off of southern India and Sri Lanka. Lake Tabera rainbowfish were discovered in Lake Tabera in Papua New Guinea. The roseline shark and the Aruleus barb both swim in the waters of India. In the rivers and streams of Thailand swim glass catfish that look see-through because they lack scales and they have no body pigment. Most archerfish live in freshwater, but a couple species also live in brackish. They range from India to northern Australia, and they shoot water jets with their mouth at insects and then eat them when they drop in the water. In the oceans of the world, wolffish love to consume crabs and mollusks. Japanese carrier crabs are deep-water crabs that are fished with gill nets or basket fishing. Painted anemones live under ledges and crevices in shallower areas. Copper rockfish communicate with sounds made from their swim bladders. Courting male long-spined snipefish change colors and act aggressively with other males. Boarfish eggs contain a drop of oil that makes them float and drift in open water. Garibaldi males aggressively defend their nest site, often attacking even divers. Female leopard sharks birth up to 37 young annually, depending on their size. Japanese armorheads are shielded from head to tail with hard scales and an exposed bone that protects its head. These anemones can reach a height of 1 meter when fully extended. The green moray is actually brown, but the yellow-tinted mucus that covers it makes it look green. Black rockfish can get up to about 50 years old. The old wife was given its derogatory name because of the sound it makes by grinding its teeth after it's caught. Male sea dragons carry the eggs laid by the female, which embed into his skin until they hatch. The sea nettle's sting is irritating but rarely dangerous. In the Wild Reef exhibit, various aquariums display many creatures from big sharks to tiny mandarin dragonets. It is a world filled with color and movement, waiting to be enjoyed. Despite their inability to perceive color, cuttlefish have the ability to match the color, contrast, and texture of their surroundings, even in total darkness. Tube anemones can withdraw themselves fully into their tube. The Caribbean rock lobster can reach up to 2 feet in length, and it's the most important food export of the Bahamas. These garden eels emerge 2/3 visible from their burrows when they are feeding on passing zooplankton. They quickly retreat to their holes when frightened or disturbed. When in danger, the marine betta will poke its head into a hole and expose its tail, which mimics the head of a moray eel. Pajama cardinals do not use aggression to exert hierarchy dominance. The harlequin tuskfish is famous for its large blue teeth. Engineer gobies will dig out up to 6.5 pounds of sand with their mouths from their burrows in a single day. Filefish are closely related to pufferfish, triggerfish, and trunkfish. There are currently close to 50 species of recognized seahorses. Yellow-striped cardinalfish comes from reefs around Fiji or Indonesia. Blue-green chromis like to school near acropora corals. An amazing educational display was also near the oceans exhibit, which showed how zooplankton and phytoplankton are cultured. The moon jelly lacks long, stinging tentacles. Instead, they have hundreds of short, fine ones that have no effect on humans. The shed also has a large saltwater aquarium with a tunnel running through it, allowing some large ocean animals to swim right over you. Guitarfish and black-tip reef sharks are some of the largest swimmers in this aquarium, while some of the smallest ones, false herring, are spinning in a bait ball to avoid predation. The potato grouper attains a maximum published length of 79 inches and a weight of 240 pounds. Blue-spotted ribbon-tail rays are kept in aquariums by some hobbyists, as are various species of lionfish, both of which can pack a punch with venom. Mandarin gobies are one of the more difficult species to care for, as are copperband butterflies and Moorish idols. Cassiope are primarily photosynthetic and spend most of their time upside down on the shallow seafloor. Shed Aquarium was a wonderful place to visit. It is very educational and the exhibits were well kept. Whether you're a kindergarten kid or a marine biologist, this place has a lot to offer everyone. Chicago's Garfield Park Conservatory is one of the largest and most stunning botanical conservatories in America. Often referred to as landscape art under glass, the conservatory showcases thousands of plant species from around the world throughout 8 indoor display gardens. There are also more than 10 acres of outdoor gardens and an amazing water lily pond. I will provide you with a brief tour of some of our photos and video that we took while we were there. The fern room was one of the biggest surprises on our visit. It was absolutely stunning. Designed in 1906, it is home to many shades of green, consisting of large ferns, cycads, and plants that thrive amongst them. They grow out of rocky outcroppings, and the whole exhibit is lush with many textures and shades. In the middle is a gorgeous pond filled with koi. We also discovered that amongst the leaves and rocks were hidden little items for the adventurous to find. And now, just for a moment, sit back and enjoy a bit of what we did while we were in the fern room. We really lucked out to be at the Conservatory on their National Honeybee Day. They were offering honey samples at tables set up in various places throughout. It was fun to taste so many varieties. We were amazed at how many flavors honey comes in, depending on when and where the bees were harvesting pollen. Some honey had citrusy tastes. Some honeys had slight minty flavors, which they told us comes from bees harvesting pollen from the local linden trees in spring. For those of us that appreciate an outdoor pond, the lily pond at the Conservatory was really, really nice. Here are some of the lilies I took pictures of. After we landed in Omaha, our Uber driver was surprised to hear that we had come there just to see the zoo and aquarium all the way from Canada. Of course, we started our day in the aquarium to make sure that we had enough time to take that in over all the other exhibits. Coming in, we were met with a large display of schooling barred flagtail. They typically swim in depths between 3 and 18 meters in the Pacific and Indian Oceans, as well as in the Red Sea. The penguins exhibit is home to 3 species of penguins that reside in regions of Antarctica. They are king, gentoo, and rockhopper. We found the penguins to be quite active and very inquisitive, which made for some very entertaining moments observing and even interacting with them. Here we have an exhibit of marine predatory fish that are considered keystone species to help with population control and culling of unhealthy individuals. This kelp forest displays how kelp likes to grow in areas with rocky bottoms, where there is plenty of light and water movement to circulate nutrients. This lagoon aquarium displayed some very good-sized soft corals and reef fish. Rock flower anemones have become very popular with reef aquarists as they're easy to keep and they come in a wide variety of colors and patterns. Yellowhead jawfishes are common in Florida. The jawfishes live in rubble areas and sand in groups of up to 70 individuals. A copperband butterfly preys on tube and substrate worms, clams, and mollusks. In an aquarium, they will often eat unwanted Aptasia anemones. This tunnel tank has a 70-foot long observation tunnel running through it. Considering that the aquarium is within a zoo, it is a very large aquarium showcasing a good diversity of water animals. Southern stingrays bury themselves in substrate to help hide from predators and will use venomous spines in their tail to defend themselves. Crevalle jack are schooling predatory fish that are a favorite game fish for anglers. Green sea turtle nesting grounds are found all along the Mexican coast. Various ocean drifters are also displayed, including the upside-down jellyfish and the west coast sea nettle that are often found in shallow waters catching prey with their 24 tentacles. Also on display are numerous moon jellyfish, which are a favorite meal of the ocean sunfish, and West African sea nettles, which differ in appearance from the west coast sea nettle primarily by the very distinct lines on their bell. South American sea nettles also have lines on their bell, but they are much less distinct. This is a Caribbean reef on display showcasing typical corals and fishes that swim there. Lionfish are an invasive species to the Caribbean reefs. The Moorish idol can be found swimming on Indo-Pacific reefs. The clown triggerfish is solitary and can be very aggressive with other fish. Harlequin tuskfish do not like to swim with their own kind. Here is a larger aquarium displaying amongst other fish various surgeonfish. Here we have an aquarium with juvenile hammerhead sharks, bat rays, and spotted eagle rays swimming through a school of lookdowns.
Like this ray here just keeps looking at us.
A sting from the dorsal spine of the most venomous fish known, the stonefish, can be fatal. It's not every day that we get to see a giant Pacific octopus, let alone one that's actively moving around in its aquarium. Freshwater bee shrimp are native to Taiwan and thrive in water that is slightly acidic. The emperor tetra was first imported to the United States in 1960 from river basins in western Colombia, and it has been a favorite with aquarium hobbyists around the world ever since. This display transports us to a scene out of the Amazon River basin. We are greeted by the red-tailed catfish, peacock bass, silver arowana, and other native fish to that region as they swim within a striking and lush display of Amazonian rainforest plants. After coming out of the aquarium, Sandra and I took a sky-fari trip across the zoo for a bird's eye view of some of the outdoor exhibits. Rather than riding a chairlift up a mountain to go skiing, it felt a bit like we were taking a trip across Africa on one. In the butterfly pavilion, you may find one landing on your head before it takes flight once again and lands on a nearby plant or flower. Right next to the butterflies is an insect display full of all kinds of creepy crawlies. Omaha's Henry Dorley Zoo and Aquarium had its beginnings in 1894, when the first animals were exhibited there under the name Riverview Park Zoo. The African Grasslands exhibit sits on 28 acres of land and has an active breeding program for many of its animals. Hello, Ellies. Oh, they're displaying. Look at that. We also took a ride on the Omaha Zoo Railroad that took us on a 4-kilometer loop of the zoo. They use one of 2 oil-powered steam locomotives to pull the train. Say something. Many visitors love to feed the thousands of koi from a covered bridge that crosses the large lagoon within the African grasslands area of the zoo. This cardinal was not a permanent zoo resident, but he was a fun find while we were walking the trails. At Stingray Beach, you could also touch stingrays for an extra fee, but since we had already done this at the Shed Aquarium in Chicago, we didn't go in there. The Asian Highlands covers 8 acres of the zoo, and it was designed to simulate a mountain ascent on the highlands of Central Asia, including India and China. The Simmons Aviary is the world's largest free-flight aviary, and it's home to about 500 birds around the world. It is 800 feet long and it rises to 75 feet high at the center. Gorilla Valley has had some recent improvements made to it to create a more interactive experience between the animals and the zoo visitors. which made for a very entertaining time there.
He's got eyelashes. Did you see that?
He wants to attack you.
We went back to see these hornbills a couple of times, since they always seem to be creating some sort of mischief. I suspect that they are intelligent birds. This gorilla was picking at some grass, and then he came right up against the viewing window where he entertained us for quite a while. The orangutan habitat focuses on creating an experience that captures the sights, the sounds, and smells of an Indonesian rainforest. Expedition Madagascar spotlights an area of the world that is considered one of the top hotspots for biodiversity because it is home to the largest number of endemic plant and animal species.
Pasa, pasa.
The world's largest indoor desert, the Desert Dome, is under the world's largest glazed geodesic dome. It has become a landmark for the city of Omaha. It features plant and animal life from 3 deserts around the world. Located beneath the dome exhibit is Kingdoms of the Night, which is the world's largest nocturnal exhibit. This was truly unique and interesting, nothing like we had ever seen before. Here we are in the Kingdoms of the Night exhibit, a one-of-a-kind sensory experience. I was limited with photography due to the overall darkness we were in. So the Desert Dome was the last place we visited before we left the zoo. We went out to find a fun place to eat after that, had a good night's sleep, and we flew home the next day. We will always cherish the good memories from this trip. We had a lot of fun, and we hope that you also enjoyed this presentation. Thanks so much for watching.